Good evening, everyone. Welcome you, everyone, for joining us another PMI UAE chapter webinar. We are thrilled to welcome you all to PMI UAE webinar, and we'll be diving into a topic: enterprise case study of AI in project management. My name is Ankur Arora. We'll be waiting for more of 5 minutes. We'll start at 7:05, and so that everybody could join in. Welcome, Amir. In the meanwhile, you can introduce yourself, sharing your which country you're joining from, along with your names. We have people joining from Abu Dhabi. Welcome. We have people joining from Dubai, Jordan. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. From Saudi Arabia. So we'll wait for more 3 minutes. And meanwhile, you can share your LinkedIn IDs for networking purpose. You can introduce yourself by sharing your LinkedIn IDs. And we really appreciate your commitment, as if you guys have spared your time for learning and growth. And we are truly honored to have you all for joining this webinar. So mostly we have people from Abu Dhabi, Dubai. We have people from Jordan, Russell Khema. So we got around 120 participants, 121. So we have 117 participants. So welcome you all. I think we have people from different time zones. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. We again welcome you all for joining us another time, another PMI UAE chapter webinar. We are thrilled to welcome you all to PMI UAE webinar, and we'll be diving into the topic enterprise case studies of AI in project management. My name is Ankur Arora. I am with my colleague Mr. Achal. And before we begin, again, a thank you to each and everyone for sparing your time and joining us today. Today, we have an existing exciting topic lined up for you. We'll be exploring very new things. We'll be learning more things from Mr. Skinner. We all encourage you to actively take part through the session, putting your questions, sharing your thoughts in the chat box, and your inputs are highly valuable for us. Before we started, I would like to remind you that as if you are introducing, if you are a new joiner for this is your first time, we can see a lot of people who have already joined these webinars before. If you're a new one, you're most welcome from our heart. Now, moving towards the UAE chapter, our slide. Okay, Project Management Institute. We were formed in, PMI was founded in 1969 by a group of working project managers. It's one of the largest professional association in the world, and it is issued globally recognized standards and certificates. They offer training, accreditations, and communities. Our chapter vision: empower and influence individuals with the innovative project economy principle to turn ideas into reality. Our mission: to disrupt and create value-driven opportunities to our chapter members and partners to become agile, innovative, productive in the platform for the growth of project economy. Our chapter is totally 100% dependent on the volunteers. We have more than 3,300 plus active chapter members. We have been top 5 chapter in the PMI EMI region. We focus on top leading industries and trends. We are serving the UAE aspiring community of project managers, PMI certified holders, and project and program professionals that are seeking the project management capabilities and offering and believing in the importance of our profession. We are totally dependent on you, our volunteers, for all the interactive and innovative as possible. Our board of members is led by our president, Mr. Adil Sultan, led by Adil Sultan, and supported by different departments like governance, media and marketing, community engagement, events, finance, and membership and certification. The benefit of PMI membership is access to PMBOK, certification discount, your PMI standards, PMI pick and career navigators, community access, exclusive events for members, tools and templates, resources access. Membership benefits: we have 4 pillars: networking, learning and knowledge sharing, career growth, events, and these webinars are a part of events. We have our new things like introducing member corner, introducing member spotlight, and members beyond basics. You can follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'll just ask Achal to take it further.
Thank you, Ankur. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, audience from where you're joining from, depending on the time zone. This is something that, of course, you have been listening to me in the past in the webinars, and I'm continuing my aspect with Ankur over here. One important information I would like to communicate first before I launch it into the webinar part. Just information to all of the people who are joining the webinar. If they are registering this webinar using the email address of the same which they have used in the PMI while registering themselves, then they are eligible to get the 2 PDUs. But if they are using the different email address, then it becomes invalid. So this was a part of information from our membership group. Just again, keep in mind and be mindful about the fact that when you register for any kind of events, webinars, you use the same email address which you have registered for the PMI over there. So that was the one important nugget around that. So going ahead with the webinar topic today, as Ankur, you already introduced the audience. I would like to put a mix into that today is that unlike in the webinars, what we have been doing, we are trying something new now this time. And more importantly, we are trying to see how it works. So no pressure and no comms around that. What we're going to do is that with Mr. Skinner, of course, who is our esteemed speaker today, we are going to introduce the type of questions what we keep getting from you in the Q&A section during the webinar. Okay, unlike only at the end. So we are not keeping Q&A only for the end. We have the logical milestones in the presentation where, of course, Mr. Skinner will be asking and would be happy to take some questions. Not all, might be one or two, or depending on the time, but we are happy to give you the right answers relevant to that topic at that logical point. So that is something that I would be doing it, and then would be happy to introduce your questions if they are answerable enough to the Mr. Skinner over there and there. And then we will have these three kind of breaks in between where we will be taking some questions. And of course, there'll be last section of Q&A as a conclusion, So that's something that new. Let's try it out. Let's make it happen, guys. Giving you the introduction of our esteemed speaker, Mr. Skinner, actually, he's come with a lot of experience. So literally, he has more than 25 years of experience working in the multiple sectors across the multiple projects in support or in the delivery roles. And he has really lived the full life cycle, even the multi-year, the major change management, transformational cycles of hundreds of millions of pounds of budgeting projects. With the past 5 years, he has been the CEO at Greyfly.ai, and his aim is to create a suite of AI-related project management product and services. And his flagship product is Intelligent Project Prediction, which uses artificial intelligence to provide executives and sponsors with the insights to increase the project success. So that's what Mr. Lloyd Skinner is about. And of course, the topic for today, as you know, to know about enterprise understanding and the productivity around AI. So let's jump into it. Over to you, Mr. Lloyd. And then we are happy to have you here and looking forward to the knowledge and the slides, what you're going to share with us now.
Is that all working okay?
Yeah, indeed, it's all
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you so much for PMI UAE inviting me today to talk to you and the audience. I'm going to introduce myself in a little bit more detail on the next page, but the QR code you can see there is my LinkedIn profile. Please feel free to reach out to me and I will do my best to accept it as quickly as possible, or alternatively do follow Greyfly.ai. I just wanted to build a little bit more on that esteemed introduction and tell you a little bit more about myself and my journey to get to this AI and project management space. I actually did a master's in information systems at the London School of Economics, LSE. To spare my blushes, it was in the early 90s, which makes me the same age as PMI, by the way. So I don't know what that means, but there you go. And what happened was, some 6 years ago, I went on the 25-year anniversary since I did that course, and basically ended up bumping into my now business partner. She ended up working for the Big Four management consultancy companies in an assurance and audit vein. As was said a second ago, I ended up running large projects, full life cycle transformation projects. And the conversation went along the lines of the technology that we'd been taught about there hadn't at that moment been applied to the world of project management. So big data, cloud compute, AI, and really that's where Greyfly was born from that evening. And we went from an idea of, could you apply AI to project management, in particular around the assurance space, as it were, so the assuring the most likely outcome of a project. We then turned that into a set of PowerPoint slides. We were then fortunate enough to get quite a big UK government grant to build our MVP, our minimum viable product, which we heard was called Intelligent Project Prediction, IPP. And I'm going to talk to you about some of our experiences to implement that over the last few years. And that system now is in production with some globally recognized brands, as it were. Now, in terms of the agenda for today, thank you also for accommodating taking Q&As along the way. Hopefully that will keep us all on our toes and engaged. But there's three key takeaways that I'd like to get out of the conversation today. Firstly, I think we're all aware that there's a lot of hype around AI in project management, and every week a new commentator is telling me on LinkedIn what AI in PM is. So I'm actually going to also suggest what I think it is as well. Then I'm going to get into the meat of the conversation. I'm going to present two case studies around IPP, talk about what they are and some of the lessons that we've worked through with our customers, as it were. And then finally, I'm going to talk about the lessons of going on this AI in project management journey. So please do listen out and please do register any Q&As that you've got along the way. Right, before we do that, I just want to understand a little bit more about who I'm talking to here. And I want to do that via talking about what level of AI understanding you and your organization has. Are we Ewoks or are we Yodas? Of course, if you're a Yoda, maybe you should be presenting rather than me today. But imagine an Ewok is somebody that's just keeping a watching eye around AI. Maybe they've done a little bit of experimentation using perhaps something like ChatGPT. I'll come back to that as we talk through. Or maybe actually within your business, you've actually got an application of a siloed application about the use of AI in project management. So you're more of a Chewbacca. Or perhaps you're really embracing AI and you've got multiple functions and you've got great instincts and want to push the boundaries, but it's still relatively early days. Or perhaps you're more Obi-Wan Kenobi, you really are getting the art of what AI is about. So I'm just going to ask our learned colleagues to run up a poll and let's see where we are as an audience. Are you okay to launch the poll now?
Sure.
Poll through the chat box, please.
Okay, so we are getting the answers through the chat answers there.
Excellent. I can't see the poll, but if we run it generally, I've been asking this question over the last couple of years, and I can tell you when I first asked this question, the number of people in the room that were beyond an Ewok was probably less than 2%. Yeah. I asked this question. I was lucky enough to be speaking at the PMI Global Series in Berlin recently and asked this question. And for the first time, somebody put up their hand and claimed to be a Yoda. I'm not sure whether they actually were. I obviously steered clear of asking their detailed questions. I personally don't believe it's possible that anybody is a Yoda. This subject of AI is so vast and is moving so fast, as it were. So you can see that generally speaking, what I'm expecting to see is a skew towards the left-hand side, but it will be really interesting, from a regional point of view, but also, like I said, that was a couple of years ago. I'm seeing an increasing maturity level around the level of AI understanding. How are we getting on? Are we ready to close the poll?
Yeah, so no, we are getting the answer still, but if I just summarize you, I think 45% of something is going towards Evoque, and somewhere around Princess Leia is going to near about 25%, and some votes have coming towards Chewbacca as well. So there's a mix of first three, more importantly, coming in. Majority is being looked by either by Princess Leia and Ewok so far.
Yeah. So what, Chewbacca's about 15, is it, or something like that?
Yeah, somewhere not more than that. You're right.
Well, I find that really interesting, not just for this audience, but actually this whole, journey that we're on around AI, that those early people at the Ewok stage is very much, awareness, nascent type technology. But actually, that's probably the highest proportion of layers I've heard as well. So I don't know that's regionally based, but that's really, really pleasing in terms of the level of experimentation. The key conclusion there, though, is that it's still early days, as it were, and perhaps we can publish that results after the actual webinar, as it were. But thank you so much for contributing towards that early icebreaker, if you like. And I'm just going to build on that a little bit further. I think the pivotal moment over the last few years has been November 22. If you know what happened in November 22, just drop it into the chat. For those that don't know, it's when ChatGPT was launched into the public consciousness. It was around before that, but really that's when it exploded. And it didn't just explode, in the world of project management. It exploded everywhere. So if you look at it now, not just PMI, but all of the professional bodies, and as I said a second ago, a lot of commentators are now talking about the application of AI in project management. And it's really, really great to see that individual experimentation is growing, and this yearn for the potential benefits of AI in project management is growing as well. However, what I would say in terms of the enterprise, the large organization level, it's still relatively early days. And those people that have been through a full life cycle and seen the benefits or otherwise, or the return on investment, I think if you start Googling, if we still Google these days, to try and find real case studies that are available, they're very few and far between. So I'm happy that I'm going to talk to you about a couple today, as it were. Now, what are we talking about AI in project management? So obviously, as a professional body, we know the very high level project life cycle. We go through a pre-approval stage. Sometimes it's a business case stage. If you're bidding to win work, bidding to win the project work, it's a bid stage. We then hopefully are successful. We've got the business case signed off. We've got a baseline. We've got a baseline that we're going to monitor against. We then deliver the project, hopefully, and then the project's handed over to operations. So what we're talking about here is trying to unlock that data around your historical projects and serve that data as information and into knowledge as early as possible in the life cycle. And obviously the difference between data and information is that information has meaning. Now, as an organization, we also serve predictions as well. So what's the most likely outcome of a project? Now, why are we trying to do that? What we're trying to do is we're trying to steer us as humans to take the right actions, the right interventions to increase project success and hopefully control project costs in a better form. Now, I mentioned a second ago that there's lots and lots of commentators about this space around the use cases of AI in project management. Now, actually, I like to categorize these in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. So anybody that's got some background around this knows that efficiency is about doing things right. Yeah, so trying to do more projects either for less or certainly for the amount of resource or budget that you've got available. So doing things right, as opposed to effectiveness, which is more about doing the right things. So about decision making, about which projects we select for approval, or making the right decisions to increase the likelihood of project success. Hopefully that makes sense. So you've got an efficiency side, doing things right, and you've got an effectiveness side, doing the right things. Now, I've put those in those categories there. It's not necessarily completely rigid between what's in each bucket, as it were, but hopefully that makes sense to you. If I go one step further and start talking about the classification of products in this space around AI and project management, what you can see on screen here is a 2x2 grid, where on the left-hand side, you've got how adaptive systems are, how much they how much they react to the data, how much knowledge is in the system, versus across the top there, how much the human is in the loop. Now, if we go back in time, what you'll find is that the majority of products are sat initially in the streamlining and automation bucket, where what we saw was that individual products were putting very standalone chatbots onto their individual products. And we've all seen that. You know, products these days tend to have individual chatbots. But really, in terms of the marketplace, there's a thrust across into virtual assistants, and there's a thrust downwards in terms of insight and foresight. And if I look at the types of products, if I look at that top line, first of all, the types of products are RPA, where you're robotic process automation, where you're starting to link products together. Yeah, so think about product like Copilot, which I think is starting a bit like ChatGPT. It's starting to be ubiquitous. Also think about the serving of using Gen AI, of large language models to serve knowledge back. And remember what I was talking about a second ago on the previous slide. There are obviously other products apart from ChatGPT. It's just that ChatGPT seems to be winning the day from a marketing point of view at this moment in time. So if I say that in a slightly different way, for me, that top line really is about driving efficiency. Yeah. So if you now start relating it to my previous slide about doing things right, yeah, and again, it's starting to touch on the doing the right things, but generally speaking, it's about driving efficiency. If I come down a level here into the insights and foresights, there's about 150 PPM tools on the marketplace. Again, a bit like AI experts, they seem to be popping up every day. I was, like I said, when I was in Berlin, I think there was about 15 providers there. Every single one of them was talking about the AI add-ons to their products. So there's a gold rush for traditional scheduling tools and new scheduling tools to add prediction. And actually, that's the space that I'm going to talk to you about as well in 1 second. I love the concept of digital twins, not just in the construction area, but in software, in any project. If you could create a virtual second image of what the design could be before you've gone through the pain of placing contracts, of building buildings, of writing code, of training people. Wouldn't that be great to get it right? For me, it's about, you know, those traditional 2D architectural drawings, getting them to leap off the page, as it were. Now, this is the next Q&A that I'm just going to see what people's views are. So the question that I like to ask people is, as of today, I'm not aware of any bionic or self-directed projects that are completely have no human in the loop. So there's a couple of things here. One, I would like any examples added in. And two, what I would also like to hear is whether you think that that will ever happen. So I'm just going to allow Anchal just to see what answers we're getting. Have we got any examples of a fully automated system? And do we think that we'll ever get to this moment where there are no humans in the loop? And I'm not going to get into a conversation about the efficacy of that. I'm just asking whether you think it's possible. That's a whole different webinar about the ethics of AI, I think. Angel, may I ask, are you getting any responses to that? Do we think this is possible?
Yeah, so I think the most of the responses I am getting so far, again, it's a bit early, but everybody is telling no. No, so it's not possible. It's possible in the future, and it's definitely possible, but not so early like today. In the near future, I believe human involvement will always be required, for example. So majority people are telling that as of now, no. So present
and is there any examples that have popped up from anybody?
Yeah, one example I can see over here is that, for example, Mr. Fawaz is telling level 1 service desk for any organization can be AI driven fully. One example is coming from Mazid, I believe. No, it's more importantly comment that basically humans, I think, are the key important aspect. Without that, we cannot achieve it. Possible example is seamless airports, medical operations,
Yeah,
telemarketing.
yeah. I think there's some fantastic responses there, and I loved the fact that you actually alluded to the first point, which is not now, but maybe in the future. If I asked the question again and said, in 100 years' time, do we think we'd have bionic projects? I think that, you know, if 99% of people said no now, I think we'd start seeing that it was moving towards 20, 30, maybe even 50% of the people get the idea that the longer term that you look, we do believe there will be fully autonomous projects. And personally, I believe that that is the truth. All you've got to do at this moment in time is look at the investment landscape where you have got companies, for example, pumping billions of dollars into things like robot humanoids, yeah, to create construction. And the driver for that, obviously, is efficiency. Again, I'm not going to get into the ethics. So I think if we think about that in time, I think, you know, if we could do this as a show of hands, for example, I could come back from the 100 years and maybe say 50 years or 20 years. I think as we get closer, yeah, it becomes, you know, a little bit, no, I don't see that. The second dimension that I would like to consider, and they were great examples, whoever gave those, by the way, is the simplicity of the projects. That the more they are repeatable, the more that they are a decision flow, I think you're more likely to see the human coming out of the loop. And the couple of examples there, you know, for example, level 1 service desk is exactly that. You're starting to see this, an element of that service desk is already being automated. And why is it? It's because there's efficiencies in the system. You know, so one system can do the work of multiple humans. So there's a drive there as well. So what I would like you guys to consider is really two dimensions here. One, the way that we classify AI in project management is around efficiency and effectiveness, doing things right versus doing the right things. And two, and please don't get lost thinking about this, when do we see that we won't have human in the loop? It's more likely that it will be elements of the project, as it were. So any other, just before we move on to case studies, any other final comments on that, Anchal?
Yeah, so some interesting aspects, because now you're talking about longevity and the timeline. So see, the people have the views, of course, and some people totally think that no, human cannot be eradicated at all, no matter what. Some people say, yeah, it would be very near future, might be 5 year, 10 year. Within 20 years, most of the people, for example, are being contextualizing it over the lap. But the thing is that people are also having this phenomena of how the things in the past of revolutions have done to them. So similarly, with this in mind, it's more of a kind of theory where we will get through these revolutions over and over. But ultimately, it's what the human consciousness will take it over and will take it to another level, to another side. So that's
Well,
also one aspect is coming. Uber is
yeah,
being
I mean,
given as a fair example.
there's
Uber.
lots of stuff there. You know, we talk about, you know, a new industrial revolution. I'll tell you what, people, in 20 years' time, rather than this two-dimensional a screen that I'm talking to, I'll see you in the virtual conference hall and we can have a conversation whether we think it's happening. Watch this space. Let's get on, because I really want to talk about the case studies. So I mentioned IPP right at the beginning, and this first case study is around the prediction side of IPP. And what we've got here is a global client. It's a UK element of the global client. They've got a portfolio of 300 projects, and at any one time they have about 100 live projects. And I can tell you, if I turned what you're about to see into actual value, you're talking about a portfolio that runs into millions of pounds, as it were. Now, again, you know, without calling out any individual organizations, we all know, and there's lots and lots of research that backs this up, that when you compare to the original budget and the original schedule, that unfortunately projects don't tend to deliver to plan and to deliver to budget. I'm not going to get into the detail of the reasons for that, but there's lots and lots of research by professional bodies, by academics, that back that statement up. And this organization was exactly the same, as it were. Now, also, they wanted to know what they could do about it as well. So what we did is we created a dynamic prediction tool that predicted the outcome of the projects. And the prediction is the outcome in terms of the most likely end budget and the most likely end go live date. So the scheduled go live date. Now, let me give you an example there of how this system works, and hopefully it will make it leap off the page for you. So for those that didn't realize, I'm based in the UK. I'm actually based in a place called Bristol. So imagine that projects came out of Bristol that used supplier one. If I look at my historical performance across the portfolio, those projects are always double the budget, double the time. Yeah. So I now can see the description of those projects. If I've got a live project that's coming out of Bristol that's using supplier one, the system is going to recognize that pattern, and it's going to predict that that live project is also at risk. Hopefully that nice simple example makes sense to you. Now, as well as predicting the outcome, what we also provided to our customers were the drivers for that prediction. So in my example there, the driver was geographical region Bristol, prime supplier, supplier one. And we can look at those drivers in a prioritized fashion, both on the individual project, but also across the portfolio. So is that a persistent problem of projects coming out of the UK? Yeah, is it a persistent problem with supplier one? In other words, do we need to do a set of interventions as to how we interact with supplier one and how we interact with those projects out of Bristol? Remember what I was saying earlier about providing knowledge to undertake the correct interventions. Now, if you can imagine there, if you know what that pattern is around your live projects, you can apply that pattern to projects not yet started. So if somebody is proposing a project out of Bristol using supplier one, the system can say, this is what's being proposed, and this is what the prediction is, and this is the variance between the two. Hopefully you're bearing with me. Any Q&As, drop them in the chat. We'll stop and we will look in those. But hopefully my conceptual explanation is making sense. The other point here is, as we know, projects aren't stagnant. Yeah, so they move over time. So the way the system works is that typically on that monthly basis, we take an ingest of data. This particular organization, their PPM tool is PlanView. We have an API into PlanView. So we take an ingest of, you know, the latest forecast in terms of schedule and money. We take any new projects and we take any completed projects. Hopefully that's all making sense. The last thing that we do, which hopefully will see about driving efficiency further, is that we propose a set of levers that you can do to close out the most likely outcome of that project. So go back to my example. What would happen, and everybody knows the answer to this, if we swapped that project from the UK to Dubai? Would there be a saving in terms of time and cost on that project? Is that the most prioritized lever that I can pull to improve the likelihood of that project success, as it were? Or maybe it was switching supplier one for supplier two, or maybe even supplier two for supplier three. And again, looking at those opportunities both on the individual project level and also on the portfolio level. Let me just build on that a little bit further. And again, I'm going to stop once I've finished talking to you about this. So get your questions ready in the Q&A. So the challenge here, so I know we'll get questions around data and data maturity. These guys, thought that they had relatively good data maturity, and I'll talk about what that means in 1 second. But we benchmarked the data maturity, and that was the first thing we did with them. Understand the as-is world. What project data have you got? Where is it held? How is it created? And benchmark the maturity using various data dimensions. Now, I mentioned a second ago in terms of it's a typical challenge in terms of overspend. Actually, they had 33% of their projects overspending. And unfortunately, the average overspend was actually 74% when you compared it to the original budget. So a walloping amount of money there being lost, and a walloping amount of money that they were having to find throughout the year that couldn't be spent on other projects, as it were. It wasn't all bad news. Some projects came in under budget, as you can see. So just to recap, what were we trying to do? We were trying to improve the data maturity. The reason why we were trying to improve the data maturity was twofold. One, we need high data maturity to train the machine learning models to create a more accurate prediction. What do I mean by accurate prediction? It's the difference between what the prediction system is saying versus what actually happened on the project. And we have that front and center in the system, as it were. The second thing was about validating that prediction accuracy. In a second, you'll see that this is not just a technical journey. This is about a people journey that needs to sit alongside this technical journey. So in other words, we have to put front and center how well that prediction is performing. And then obviously the other piece that we talked about was predicting the outcome and identifying those areas for savings. Now, I'm really, really proud to say that not only did we improve the data quality, but we have proved that you can predict right at the start of a project the most likely outcome within 96% accuracy in terms of finance and 95% accuracy in terms of schedule. And like I said to you a second ago, we have to have that built into the system. So things like the data quality maturity is built into the system, along with the visibility of how well the prediction is performing over time, as it were. That meant there was a cost avoidance saving of up to 32%, 96 times the 33, yeah? Now notice, for those eagle-eyed project managers amongst you, that I'm referring to cost avoidance. And the reason I'm referring to cost avoidance is because at the beginning of the project, you hadn't committed to the 33% overspend, as it were. We also allowed that actually where those projects were overspending, we've reduced that as well. Now, if you can imagine, we're monitoring these numbers on an ongoing basis because we're trying to drive more and more projects to be delivered first time, every time, right, as it were. Working with Transport for London manage all the tubes and buses in London. The chap there said, Lloyd, what you're really getting at is something called the McLeamy curve. Look it up, anybody. McLeamy curve is a piece of research that basically says that change control costs you less at the beginning of a project life cycle. To me, that makes very logical sense. If you can imagine, I'm halfway through a project and I'm trying to stand down that supplier one, or I'm trying to move the project from Bristol to Dubai, that's a really big undertaking. Yeah, so much better to set the project up right in the first place. What we found, though, is it's really aired the reality of the project. Yeah, so what really is happening on the project? Now, I'm really pleased to say that this particular customer, we've now embarked on a second phase, and I'm going to talk to you more about that in terms of lessons in 1 second. Let me just do this last slide quickly. So on a monthly basis, we take that ingest that I talked about. We play back the data quality, we play back the prediction accuracy, we play back the projects that need intervention, and we play back those drivers for the intervention, both at the individual project level and the portfolio level. The steps we went through, as I said, the first thing is we work out what data, what systems exists. Now, for an organization that has lower maturity in terms of data, all is not lost, because it becomes more about how to work with that organization to improve the data maturity. Now, the other thing in there, all is not lost, because we're only answering that big question about the most likely outcome in terms of budget and schedule. It means that we need to know less data points. In other words, those data points are more likely to exist. So that challenge, that technical challenge, which is the number one biggest technical challenge that you'll hear any commentator talk about, which is the quality of data, garbage in, garbage out, as it were, we attack that challenge front on by putting a series of mechanisms in place. Once we're through that, for us, it's about taking this vanilla product of IPP and configuring it for that individual customer, as it were. So in other words, what's the data model for that customer? We don't blend data from one organization to a next. I believe, and we strongly believe, that every organization runs projects slightly different. So once we've worked out what data you've got, we want to load that into the machine learning models to train those machine learning models to get the benchmark accuracy of the machine learning models, but we also benchmark some of the KPIs that I talked about on the previous page. What's the typical overspend or underspend? What's the typical duration, etc., by project type? So we're building out the back end there. So we're building the data pipelines depending on the structure. Maybe that's moving the data into our cloud environment. Maybe we need to work through private clouds, or maybe even the on-prem solution, as it were. We're training those machine learning models. For those people that care, we've got an Azure back end and a Power BI front end. Power BI obviously also gives you the benefit that you can reconfigure existing dashboards to have a prediction dimension on them as well. Now, when we deliver this product, we've got a couple of principles in here. First of all, the principle is to try and create the product like an app on your phone. In other words, there's not a huge onboarding training step. And think about the users here. You know, these are executives, yeah, that you know, tend to be short of time and maybe even short of patience as to where to direct their time. And what we're saying is we've got this second principle of guided analysis, that this is the project you need to focus in on, because that particular project manager hasn't necessarily aired everything in terms of the most likely outcome of the project. Now, again, this point of guided analysis, if we needed to get down to the nth degree, the richness of the data model gets a lot bigger. So go back to my question about human in the loop. The human in the loop in this system is go and investigate further. This project, based on your historical performance, is likely to be at risk. Go and validate that. And as I said a minute ago, what we found is that's brought it to the surface. Change management is the last thing I just want to talk about before I stop a second. So get your questions into the chat if we're not ready, and please, if you can prepare them, Anshul. So change management is so key in this. If you can imagine that suddenly you're telling this highly experienced project manager, project director, that their project's at risk, you've got that whole argument of, I don't believe you. And that's why, you know, earlier when I was talking about showing front and center how accurate the prediction system is performing, that's your first line of defense about that, which is show them. Yeah. The second thing is you want to bring people on the journey. And this last bit of the journey is about how you embed the system within existing workflows. So, for example, if you're talking about projects in delivery, maybe it's every time you get a progress report, what is the prediction system saying? Or maybe you're at a gate review, what is the prediction system saying? Or maybe you're at an assurance review, what is the prediction system saying? Similarly, if your project's not yet started, you're proposing the business case, tell me what the prediction system is saying. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that and how we found our user base has grown beyond the project community. But I'm just going to stop and take a quick sip of water and ask for a couple of questions, if I may.
Okay, so interesting. So far, it's getting a bit into the technical side of the discussions now, Lloyd. So of course, there are some questions I would like to pick up. One or two definitely looks to be promising here to definitely be answered. You already spoke in your slides written there, multiple machine learning models you have used there. Of course, there would be multiple. It means there's not one model. So some people are asking which models you have utilized, for example.
Yeah. Let me build on that a little bit more. Actually, what we do is we run a whole heap of ML models, and the system picks off the model that is the most accurate for that data set, and that's automatically generated in the back end. When we started this journey, we started experimenting with multiple layers of neural networks. I can tell you, on the data sets that we have, neural nets are not currently the most accurate prediction systems. Also, it's just worth saying that we do run some reference class forecasting. I know it's a statistical model as opposed to ML model. I can mention various other ML models, but if you can imagine, that's what we've been working on over the last 4 years in terms of the IP around this system. Yeah, so I'm not going to tell you about which ML models are going to be the most accurate. Hey, you spend the multi-million pounds and build your own system, or maybe come knocking at our door, yeah?
Okay, so what about the predictions? For example, hallucinations, basically predictions are there. How do you put a line of defense to that? That's what being Prasanna is asking about
So
AI.
just say that again. I just didn't catch your first words.
Is there any line of defense to identify the hallucinations in the predictions?
So I think this goes back to that garbage in, garbage out, yeah, and the accuracy of the prediction. So hallucinations are typically related to large language models, yeah, and I love this, by the way. Somebody said to me the other day, "Oh, you're in the traditional AI space." I was like, "Really?" But the point I'm making there is that we actually monitor the garbage in, garbage out, and at the back end, we monitor how well the prediction is performing. So I think that's the equivalent of taking hallucinations away, or basically presenting poor accuracy. The hallucinations, I think, is more akin when we talk about lessons learned in the first place. But, you know, this is why one of the challenges here is about data. And again, in terms of that data maturity, we have that ongoing program. So every time we take an ingest, yeah, we bounce out some project data. I don't know, for example, actuals are bigger than forecast. You know, it's quite a simple rule there. And we work with the PMO office so that they can improve the data in the intervening period so that we can then predict more accurately. But basically, if we're getting garbage in, it gets bounced out of the system, and therefore we're only looking at projects that are reporting sensible data. What we are finding as well, you know, there was an example the other day with one of our customers where actually something got through the net that made complete sense. They were presenting to the global CEO where the global CEO was saying, look, this project, I think it's going to be a bigger budget. The prediction system was supporting the global CEO, whereas the UK division was saying, no, it's lower. And what they found was when you dug into it, that the poor project manager had put the actuals in the forecast. So we didn't clock that. It's because it made perfect sense in terms of the data coming in. So it drove a data maturity improvement. There's a whole set of things that in this journey is all about data. Yeah, so and it's not just the data cleanse. What I would say, and apologies, you've got me going on this exercise now, and again, this might invoke some conversation if you like. I, for one reason or another, over the last 6 years, have moved house several times, and I can tell you the first thing I did when I moved house originally was I put a load of boxes in the loft and then I left them there. And 2 years later, I took the boxes out of that loft and I put them in my new loft. And then I moved again. And the reason I'm giving you that example, I think what I would encourage you to do is really think about what is the core data elements. As humans, we've got this desire to grab every bit of data because we might need it in the future. Now, of those 100 pairs of shoes, I'm a bit of a shoeaholic that I put in the loft. I can tell you that I eventually threw them all away and there's about 1 pair that I missed. And you know what? I bought a new pair. So I think there's this danger about, you know, capturing and saving data for the sake of it. Again, philosophical conversation. I'm just wary of time. Shall I move on?
Yeah, so we are almost finishing the NR, Lloyd. So I think we need to quickly rush it through there.
Yeah, I'm going to just give you a quick 5 minutes about something else. And this is the second case study about intelligent project lessons. So this organization, it's the same organization that I was talking about on the previous page. So the system integrates both prediction and lessons, and they have that perennial challenge that they've been through the pain of capturing lessons, but they're shelfware. They're not actually used. So what we tried to do was create a system that unlocks that data around lessons and serves it as early as possible in the life cycle. And we serve that alongside project predictions as well. So now you're not only serving what the most likely outcome is, but you're serving some intelligence as to how you're more likely to close that delta around the lessons. Hopefully, again, that makes logical sense. How did we do that? Each of those lessons has a set of features associated with that completed project. So here's the lessons around projects from Bristol that use supplier A. Give me all of those lessons. Yeah, there's matching features. Compare that to the live project or the proposed project out of Bristol using supplier A. I can now start serving the right lessons. Sounds fantastic. However, couple of things there. If I look at it, the way that those lessons were captured were in a, let's call them a digital format, but written by the project manager. And there's a lot of feeling in those lessons. So where we then used Gen AI was to apply objectivity to those lessons and leveled them out and removed duplicates as well. What we then did, as well as serving those lessons and started reducing the number of lessons, we also served the mitigations for those lessons, applying the Gen AI to reduce the number of mitigations, again, in terms of removing those duplicates, but we then also blended that with OpenAI. Longer term, we'd like to blend it with other credible data sources, such as PMI's Infinity, as they bring a commercial model to market. And of course, there are other products in there. There's half a dozen PM assistants. It'll be interesting to see which ones roll the day. I think it will be the professional bodies. The other thing I'd just like to add in there, which I should have talked about earlier around prediction, is this whole area of explainability. And this explainability for me is on two levels. There's one, the human level, which is actually when I give a prediction or when I suggest a lesson, explain to me why I'm giving that prediction. In other words, it's because of these similar projects. So those matching features that I just referred to, or if I give a lesson, it's because of these projects had the same lesson and they've got the matching features. Again, a whole conversation there about explainability, but it's really, really important in that space to justify it from a human point of view, as it were. The other thing is, again, the philosophical answer there about which is the most important lesson. And the way that we looked at that was how often that lesson occurred, but also a relationship to the prediction side in terms of the value of that project that had that lesson, the value of the overspend or the delay, as it were. Now, I mentioned earlier that it's been really interesting about the creation of new users. What we found is, and I don't know whether you guys have them in your organization, but there's a function called investment control that appraise business cases. Yeah, so when somebody's proposing a business case, there's a quality assurance of the likelihood of success and say, have you looked at these lessons? This is what we believe. Has everybody signed it off? Well, you think about it, what I'm talking about there is basically providing the first layer of that assurance. I'm saying what the most likely outcome is. I'm saying what the likely duration is. I'm saying what the similar projects are. I'm saying what those lessons are. And we all know that lessons are the other side of the coin of risks as well. So we found this whole new user group. And I think what you'll find here is functions such as finance, will start drawing on these very similar products. And we don't want finance having a separate system to projects, which is what's traditionally happened. Again, there's a whole conversation. Now, just because we're heading towards the finishing line, and it's not true that I like the sound of my own voice, there's a couple of last slides here. One was about the lessons on this journey. And the headline for me is that, and I've used this phrase a couple of times, is it is a journey. AI in project management is not a switch it on and suddenly it's working. We talked about maturing data. We talked about a change management journey as well. So in other words, there's not just a technical dimension to this, there's a people dimension. Please take that away from you. Change management on this journey is as important as the technical journey. The good news is that we're proving that this is right. We're proving that there's a return on investment. Plan it like a project, plan it like a transformation project. Maybe there's a big vision, but there are phases within that transformation, and get feedback, which is where we're into now. We're making sure that those recommendations are that actually worked as well. So again, you may get a hint there about where the future of our products are going. Right, now, these are my last slide or so. So in summary, guys, this is ubiquitous. AI in project management's not going away. All of the professional bodies are talking about this subject. There are so many new experts in AI and project management. I don't know them all myself, but hey ho, this is not going away, guys. Get on that ticket, both individually and ask the questions within your organization about what are we doing about AI in project management. Yes, there are technical barriers, but please do not forget about people barriers. I'm teaching you to suck eggs, to talk about data is in that as well. That's one of the technical barriers, as it were. It enables improved decision-making. Remember that efficiency and that effectiveness side that I said right at the beginning. Run it like a project. Now, last slide, I just wanted to introduce this organization called DHL. I presume you guys have heard of DHL. It's a global organization, logistics. And these guys have been on this journey with us over a couple of years now. And you can see from that quote, it's getting really interesting. Remember what I said right at the beginning about, will we get to that moment where there are bionic projects? Well, I think we're starting to scratch at the surface of this already, and we will increasingly move towards that. And there's just that moment. Where is that moment? Get on this journey, as it were. I'm Lloyd Skinner. Thank you very much for listening to my talk. I think we've got time for one or two last Q&As. Is that right, Ancha?
Looks to be difficult because there are a lot of questions actually, and I don't want to do injustice to the people there, but definitely this thanks for sharing the slide, what is on the screen now. That's very important, because then people can reach out to you to ask their questions in your person as well.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Apologies if I haven't had chance to answer your specific questions. Please do link in with me or follow greyfly.ai. You'll see some fantastic content on there from global experts in project management to see what they're saying about AI in project management. Have we got time for one at all, or have we got to go?
Yeah, so I think for the moment, I think I can pick up something which is a small one, which you can answer. One is the very direct answer. What was the name of the research which you mentioned in your speech for the change control?
Oh, the McLeamy curve. Curve. What I'll do is I'll share it with you afterwards, and then maybe when you share the slides, you can put McLeamy. It's a Scottish name. M little c capital L E M E A M E Y. McLeamy.
Thank you so much. That was the easiest one could be. And again, before I hand it over, but yeah, all the questions are very contextual. What tools do we really require to, again, this is again more of a kind of debatable, but what tools do we really require at enterprise level to get the project management data for kind of system, what you just mentioned?
Well, whoever's asking that question, get in touch and we can have a whole conversation around that. I think that there's a step before that, which is what the data model and what you've got, and then we can work out the tools, as it were. The key there is whichever tool that you do pick, you make it as efficient and effective as possible. But I think there's a step before that. So without understanding exactly what they've got, you know, in terms of volumes of projects, number of source systems, it's very hard to make a specific recommendation.
Thank you. I think we are almost at 8 or 9. So unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to take it more. Ankur, over to you. I think thank you so much, Dr. The Lloyd Skinner. That's what I mean to say there. But important thing is that I just put the nuggets around it. You mentioned quite a few important areas of your presentation in the speech today. You spoke about the data maturity. You spoke about explainability. You touched a bit scratch there. Lessons learned. How did you use in the case study? And more importantly, change management aspect, you never forget about it. I think that was very important. I was thinking that when you will bring that piece, I was waiting from the beginning that when it will come in your speech, but thanks for bringing that. And technical barriers, of course, the data, we all know, but I think more importantly, it's a journey and not a sprint, as you yourself spoke about. So that makes sense totally, because then we try to make a sense out of a journey is what is our experience of the journey, and the journey is not going to over so early, you know. So that's the way we need to look at it. It's a time for us to go back and to ask the questions for detailed things for Lloyd Skinner. There are the details in the screen for you. And then I think thank you so much, Lloyd, for the efforts, time, and energy you have put for us and our audience, who has been wonderful. I think the kind of questions I'm getting today is one of the very important and good quality questions. So congratulations, audience. I think the questions were quite good enough, and then I could not manage to get them out answered. Apologies for that due to the time limitation, but thank you so much. And Ankur, over to you to close the webinar today then.
Thank you, Achal. As we come close to our webinar today, first we would like to thank Mr. Skinner for putting a light on AI in project management. Hope we'll have AI plus the human can work together very soon. And it was very interactive session, as you had a poll during the session. So people got time to interact, providing their views and thoughts, sharing their thoughts. And also you let us go through how AI can increase success by driving efficiency and effectiveness. Secondly, I would like to thank and express my deep appreciation to each and every one of you for joining us tonight and make this webinar a successful one. Also want to appreciate our marketing team for posting these webinars on the website and social media. Special thanks to PMI volunteer team, membership team, outreach, volunteering, and finance, who has made a support for us to make this webinar possible. Before signing off, a special thanks to Amir, Reena, Parvez, Achal. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you
from
so
me
much.
as well.
Have a lovely good evening going ahead. Thank you so much, Lord. Bye-bye.
Thank
you
you.
so much, Skinner. Thank you.
Thank you.